Mark Schulman, this is so great to have you here. I've known you for a long time, and I have always been impressed with you as a player. Your playing standard is always at the highest level. I've heard you with Pink, I've heard you with so many different acts. You've always maintained that, and as a person, you have always been high level, motivating, positive, all the time. Great to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, my friend.
Mark, just tell me, where did it begin? How did music enter your life? And where did the whole concept of you being involved with music begin?
Well, as I tell the story, when I was 3 years old, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I know that was, such a moment for everybody, but I was so young, and I was just transfixed. I was literally holding onto the TV set. My brother's trying to push me out of the way, and I'm watching John and George and Paul, and then Ringo came on. And it was like that big, beautiful nose and the smile, and something resonated deep inside. And then I saw the screaming girls, and that closed the deal. But then I knew I wanted to play drums. That was it. I told my mother, Mom, I got to play drums. And she says, no. Can't you play a nice instrument like your brother Randy? He plays violin. The interesting thing is, my godfather was teaching my brother how to play violin, my Uncle Ben. So I was at my brother's lesson, and I see this kind of looks like a tall violin standing in the corner. It was a cello. And I said, I'll try playing that. So I started playing cello and kind of got into it. I became reasonably good. And then my godfather started giving me a little drum lesson just to help me read the music and just get the technique down. And then finally, by the time I was 9 years old, I'd been playing cello. My parents got me my first drum set. It was a Slingerland Radio King with a 26 or 28 inch bass drum, the calfskin heads.
Kit, yeah.
By the time I was 12, I did my first professional gig, and I just kept on playing. I played all through high school when the other kids were delivering pizzas and working at fast food restaurants. I played every weekend. And we were in the band, we put on the tuxes. So there were other bands that were playing parties that weren't really making the money. We thought, well, you know what? We can leverage what we're doing here. And I was the youngest one in the band, and my friend Steve Diamond, who's still one of my best friends, he was the older boy booking the band. So we were looking for opportunities not only to play, but to make money. And what that did for me is that actually increased my repertoire. So instead of just playing the rock and roll of the day like you would at a party and you would at high school, we were playing jazz standards. We were playing, even Greek music and Hava Nagila, and so it really gave me this kind of diverse palette of playing. And then I went to college. My parents were both professors, and I was going to college because I was going to be a doctor, an attorney, whatever, and I quit school. Literally, I was going to Cal State Northridge.
That must have went over real well with your parents.
It did not go over well, but I wanted to play music, and I just started playing top 40 because I knew I had the vision. My parents knew I was focused and I was committed. In and around, prior to that time, I started studying with Freddie Gruber, so I got a lot more serious, and I started teaching. And when I started teaching at 19 years old, as you know, because you are the teacher, when you teach, it gives you a new and unique perspective on your playing because you're breaking things down and you're looking at things and you really are solving problems for others. What I've continued to tell, and I still teach, that's part of being a musician now. Part of having sort of a well-rounded career, it isn't simply about playing, because when you get to teach, then you get to really expand on what you already know, as well as doing one of the most ethical things on the planet, which is imparting information and really nurturing somebody. And young players, old players alike, everybody can learn from everybody else. If I took lessons from you, I'd learn so much. We can all learn from each other. So by providing that service, it is part of what just about every musician I know teaches. It's a critical part.
Fantastic. So you start becoming more professional now. You're playing in different bands. You're widening your network, so to speak.
Well, I started widening my network, and then I actually moved out of Los Angeles with a band because we wanted to play original music, and we heard you can make money in Portland, Oregon. So I left LA with my band, moved to Portland, Oregon. The band broke up. I loved Portland. I started working at a studio. I got very, very serious. I actually stopped drinking and doing things like that. I got really, really focused. I met a brilliant man who's still my life coach, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Jim Samuels, who just got me inspired to put the focus in. And I led my own original band. And by leading my own original band and then getting in production mode and working in studios, not only playing, but engineering and producing and leading the band, it gave me this really great aggregate perspective of what it's like to have a successful band as opposed to simply be successful on your own instrument.
Interesting.
Very big learning experience in my 20s. So I was selling stereo gear during the day and every night rehearsing with the band, producing. We'd play on the weekends. We would make some money. And then the band got really close and we got a demo deal with Atlantic Records and then the band broke up. But by that point I thought, I can either start another original band. Right. And original bands were getting signed. This was the 80s, baby, so they were large recording contracts. There was an industry with artists and repertoire people. You could get a demo deal. They'd put money into the band. They'd nurture you along. They'd help you write. They'd give you a 3 or 4 album deal. So if you spent $250,000 making the first record, if it didn't do that well, we'll try another one. It's not that way anymore now, right? But I thought, well, I can go that route. But I said, I know I'm ready. I know I'm ready to be successful. I moved back down to LA. I was 25. And then a guy that I'd met in Portland, Dan Reed from the Dan Reed Network, was a good friend of mine. They got the record deal and they were touring the world. And then he recommended that I audition for this band called Bad English, which was a super group. It was Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain from Journey, and then John Waite, that amazing Brit Rot singer, and Ricky Phillips. And so I auditioned for Bad English. And I was so overwhelmed with stage fright and performance anxiety, and I was rushing horribly, and I miserably failed this audition. And it was a defining moment for me because I thought I was going to get the gig. Dean Castronova got the gig. He was another sort of Portland, Salem guy.
Yes.
But it was impetus for me to stop what I was doing and go back to the foundation. I ended up joining the rhythm course, and I ended up essentially mastering my meter. I hadn't mastered my meter yet. And I spent a couple of years working hours a day, clapping to all these different rhythms to really solidify my meter, then playing. And it's like I kind of went back to the basics. And then I got recommended to play with Brenda Russell. And that was my first road gig. I was the R&B drummer with Brenda Russell. Oh, we were opening up for Billy Ocean. And from there is when my career started to expand.
And it has continued in the process.
It has continued to expand.
Let's go back a little bit to Dr. Samuels.
Yes.
As a mentor.
Yes.
What do you think he saw in you?
He saw primarily a willingness, I believe. A willingness to learn, a willingness to do the work.
Yeah.
And an energy.
Yeah.
And a decision. That's one of the things that I think I heard it from Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins talks about when you make a decision, you are literally cutting off all other possibilities. Yeah. I decided at that point, I'm going to work on myself, like do inner work. Back then we were calling it sessioning and sorting, where we'd look at issues that were confronting us and troubling us, and we'd find a way to release the stress and find a choice, find a solution. And so I was looking at things and blocks that I had and prejudices, and growing up in a family of 2 professors and a brother, and you can't be a musician, that's not a real job, you got to get a real job. And I kind of worked through all that stuff, and I thought, well, I can be successful in this industry. And I realized it was more than just talent. I had a lot of natural ability, and then I nurtured the natural ability, and I had a wonderful, wonderful, miserable failure with the world class that inspired me to go back to the drawing board and clean up what I needed to clean up. Good. And it was all these things, it was my level of commitment. And one of the things I know that we talked about, and one of the things that I learned from Dr. Jim, he has this concept called ABC, attitude, behavior, consequence. I know you love this because we talked about this.
I love it.
And this is a really critical thing. And I employ this still in my life every day. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control our attitudes about what happened to us. Right. And we can change or shift or mold our attitudes right in the moment. That is within our realm, and that is something we can control. Right. The attitudes are what drive the behavior, and the behavior is what determines the consequences. Right. So you can actually make changes in your life, change an outcome by shifting or controlling your attitude. And so what I've found is in situations now, rather than crumbling or looking at the adversity or looking at the hardship, I'm saying, well, where's the opportunity and what can I do? What can I do to change things, to shift things to work not only for my good, but for the highest good of all concerned? And then I literally am driving my behavior and I'm changing the consequences. And I believe that that is one of the absolute foundations for my success, because it's way above talent. Because we all know these people that are incredibly talented that are just sitting in their garage or their room still practicing.
And going nowhere. Absolutely.
Going nowhere.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at you. You're a man who literally invented this incredible career. You're the ambassador of drumming. You invented that. You created an attitude, and then you, through your attitude and through the decisions that you made,
Absolutely.
you literally molded your behavior and have achieved this enormous success, and that's why we're sitting here today.
What's amazing is that it has to come down from your personal commitment and desire to want to do this.
Absolutely.
You have an incredible self-motivation that is just, it's beautiful, it's inspiring, it's empowering.
Well, thank you. You as well.
Well, this is part of, and we do this, where does this come from you? Where's the core of your motivation? What moves you? What drives you every day?
Well, I'll tell you something that I discovered more recently. You know, I'm very conceptual like you are. I'm a thinker, and we think about it's not just, in our business, I say it's not what we play, it's how we play it. Yeah. Because how we play it is how we're when we bring in our uniqueness and our personality. And then I thought, well, okay, that's the beginning of it. I'm bringing in sort of who I am and all the things that I have to offer, my foundation of learning and listening and everything that I've done and everything that I know and have learned and have experienced goes into every note I play.
Yeah.
But then it's attention. How much attention are we paying to the details? And I realized, well, I have learned how to pay a lot of attention to all of the nuances. And intention. How intent are we?
Beautiful.
How willing are you willing to move? How hard are you willing to work? And what is your threshold, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've developed a very high threshold.
Absolutely.
But then it goes deeper. Yeah. And I realized, okay, this is all like components of passion. Passion drives us. You're so passionate. I'm so passionate. Passion is what drives us. Passion is what gets us here. And people talk about passion like that's the last component. It's not. Passion's what gets us here. Purpose is what keeps us here.
Absolutely. Well said.
You evolve passion into purpose, and then every note you play is so deliberate, and so purposeful that it literally can make you irresistible. It gives you so much power.
Absolutely.
And that's the way I approach it. So when I'm on stage, I'm not the best drummer. There's always 1,000 people, thousands of people that may have more chops or more vocabulary, more facility. So why am I sitting here and why are you sitting here? It's because we have a sense of purpose. We've attached so much purpose to everything we do. And that's what I did with my career. Because my parents said, you're a doctor or a lawyer. I said, no, I believe my purpose is as a drummer, because I can move people, I can make changes, I can inspire people through that platform. They're all just platforms.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I've evolved into doing these speaking gigs, because that's become yet a new platform. We can talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But it really is, if you sit down, and also we use the metaphor of when you're, at least for drummers, what do we sit on? We sit on a throne. So what does that make us, the king or the queen? But I use that even when I talk to corporate people. What if you thought every single moment you sit down to play your instrument, you're sitting on a throne? Because we are the luckiest people on the planet.
Absolutely.
And if you embrace that and you put a sense of purpose in every note you practice, all of a sudden it has more meaning. And all of a sudden, practice doesn't feel arduous. It doesn't feel like work. We don't work music, we play music. We're the luckiest people on the planet, right?
Absolutely. Well said, absolutely.
So, come on.
Absolutely.
We need to embrace that. So attitude, behavior, consequence, transforming passion into purpose. These are all the things that I've embraced, so to speak. And you've been a big inspiration, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Dom and I did a clinic tour in 1996 together, and he changed my life.
In Germany.
In Germany.
Yeah.
So but you need to be open. The channel needs to be open. One of the things I see, and one of the challenges I see with young players, is they're very quick to point out what they don't like. Yeah. The moment you point out you don't like something, what happens? You shut off.
Absolutely.
Look, I may not be a big rap fan, I didn't grow up with rap music. I'm 55 years old. But I listen to the phrasing of some of these rappers, and it reminds me of like tap dancing and drum solos, and I can still embrace that and learn from that, whether it's my cup of tea, so to speak, or not. So you need to be open to the experience.
But that's the open mind that you have. Not everybody has an open mind, which means I'm willing to accept everything and then make the clarity of a choice of where I want to go once my mind is open.
Right, totally.
You took the book down. The book, Conquering Stage Fright, the fears of stage fright. This book is fantastic. I have the book. I've read it. Where did that come from? How'd that come about?
Well, the book is a metaphor. Conquering life's stage fright is about just, again, opening yourself up and getting beyond the fear into confidence. Dr. Jim, he taught me a long time ago, he'd gone over something he called the 3 C's. And there's sort of what happens. It's, again, a sort of an approach to the levels of learning. Clear, capable, confident. You need to be clear, crystal clear about what you're doing, and then you need to develop the capability based on what you learn.
The skills, right?
And that's what gives you absolute confidence. Well, I took that and I put it into a more of a movement phase, and I thought, well, clarity, capability, confidence. And I thought that is actually a component of moving beyond the fear, because if all you want to do is get over fear, that's a negative goal. And then if you say like, I won't be afraid, what are you focusing on? Being afraid. What's the goal? The goal is confidence. Confidence means you have absolute certainty. So if you look at any situation, what creates the fear, it starts with lack of clarity. You're uncertain about really what you're going to do and how you're going to get there. When you clear that up, and then you're going to do the work.
That's right.
Then you're going to develop your capability based on what you learned. And if you have absolute clarity, if you really develop that capability, that's what naturally leads you to confidence, as opposed to false confidence. False confidence is dangerous. And I tell people, if you look at it literally, if you get on the stage and you're afraid, there's a couple of things to look at. Have you done the work? If you haven't done the work, you should be afraid. Seriously. You shouldn't be there. If you've done the work, then you go, well, there are all these conditions and emotional responses, and a lot of it, I can give 3 quick tips. First of all, one of the things that I would do is when I would get overwhelmed with stage fright, so to speak, and I knew I'd done the work, one time I just started talking to myself. I was like, okay, Mark, what's going on? I go, who are you thinking about? Well, myself? Well, who should you be thinking about? The audience. So what does that make you? A selfish idiot? Yes. Then I release the stress. The moment you can laugh, you crack the stress. I realized instead of taking the energy and putting it inward, we're in the service business. So when I'm on stage, one of the things I've learned is I'm going to take all that energy, I'm going to put it into the band and the artists and the audience. Because at one point, I realized that I got so complacent. I played with the band Foreigner for many, many years, off and on. I played with band Foreigner since 1993. And one point I was laughing because I realized I'd played Feels Like the First Time like 500 times. But when I was doing the first tour, we'd done hundreds of dates. And I was coming on stage and I wasn't feeling anything. I was just complacent. I was so relaxed. And I realized I wasn't in peak performance. I wasn't playing at my best. I need some of the fire in the belly. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So what I did is I started, instead of coming to the drum area, I started running out to the audience and connecting with their eyes and trying to connect with their energy. Beautiful. Because first of all, I realized something else that I learned many years ago is that fear and excitement are kind of the same chemistry in the body. They're flip sides of the same coin. So I was connecting with the excitement of the audience, and then I started getting the butterflies back, just a little bit of butterflies. Because when it comes to the stage fright, it's not about getting rid of it, it's about taming it, managing it, using it to your advantage. Because
Absolutely.
there's a peak performance where you have a little bit of that, and you're almost like hyper aware. You're in this hyper state of performance, and that's when we're at our best. I wasn't at my best. And from that point on, I'm like, this is great. I felt like I was in peak performance again.
But that's beautiful, because what happens with a little bit of those butterflies and that fear, that shows you want to do great.
Right.
That shows
that's
you want to
intention.
deliver
Exactly.
you want to produce well. If you've got none of that,
Yeah.
you really don't care.
Exactly.
That's a great point.
And that's why I got complacent, and it was a really big learning lesson. And these are all the components that went into my book. I mean, I actually probably started writing the book when I failed that bad English audition.
Absolutely. So think
because
about
when I failed that, I kind of went home and I was totally defeated, and then I kind of like I kind of snapped out of it. I literally I was so depressed. I had like the freshly shined rock and roll jewelry and the boots and the outfit, and I got into bed. I was defeated. And I pulled the covers over my head and I said, wait, no. And like a couple months later, I literally jumped out of bed and said, I'm not one to wallow in self-pity. That's not my style, man.
Good.
I'm resilient.
Good.
And it was right around that time I made the 2 commitments to myself. And the one was no one was gonna tell me I'm speeding up or slowing down anymore. I'm gonna master my internal sense of time, and that's when I went and did that program. Yeah. But then I also realized that I made the commitment that I was gonna basically bust my nerves and fear into submission.
Yeah.
And transform them into confident peak performance. And literally, the next 20, 25 years, I analyzed, studied, researched, networked, discovered, and I uncovered the habits and rituals that inspired me to write the book. Beautiful. And it was like that book was I was writing it. I was writing it my whole life. Like when you wrote the Cycles of Empowerment, you write it your whole life because you're discovering, you're noticing as you go along these formulas and things are going to work, and that they transcend music. I mean, life reflects art, and art reflects life. So all the things we're talking about today are for the musician, but they're really for everybody.
It's a life lesson. It's amazing. As I got involved with my book and started to realize that I can now do these motivational talks to different corporations, that my music industry allowed me to find a whole nother side of me.
I know.
You are doing that at such a high level now with the book. Tell me about some of the motivational talks that you do.
Okay, this is where you inspired me. 1996, we're driving in a van, and Dom starts telling the story. He goes, I was doing this drum clinic, and this little kid comes up, and his dad's there, and his dad's like, I love what you do. I'm a CEO of a corporation. Can you come and speak for my corporation? I don't have that much money, but maybe like $7,000. And you're going, because we're making a few $100 to do a drum clinic.
I think I can schedule that.
I think I can schedule it. But it applies. And then I would imagine, that was the story you told me.
Absolutely.
How accurate was I? I remember that. It was 1996.
Yeah.
So in the back of my head, I thought, he's right. Because when we are doing our music clinics, people want to hear the chops, but I know for me, what my strong suit is they want to hear the stories, they want to hear the success. How did you get there? What's the path?
Right.
If you go to see Virgil, no, shut up and play, Virgil. You're doing great.
Virgil Donati, absolutely.
You see Virgil Donati or Thomas Lyman, they're great communicators. Trust me, you're Vinny. I'm not so much the chops guy. I have my little basket of chops that I've got.
Don't undersell yourself.
But you understand, but my value, remember, we're looking at the greater purpose.
Right.
I feel like my purpose is more in the communication component and the chops combined.
Yeah.
You also kicked my butt. You said, man, you could be doing more. We did that tour. You were the one that inspired me to kind of take my playing to another level. Yeah. You inspired me more than you even know. So it was the back of my head. So eventually I thought, well, I can take the music clinic and draw more comparisons to the corporate world because the content needs to be applicable. But it's all the same stories. When I go and do a drum clinic now and I go do a corporate speaking gig, it's about 80% the same thing.
Absolutely.
Because they're the same concepts.
Absolutely.
It's just you relate it back, you find out their specific concern or their pain. If you're talking to IT people, if you're talking to people about sales people, if you're talking to leaders, if you're talking to teams. And so I just sort of refine my message so it has a little bit more continuity with what they're saying.
Yeah.
But I play drums. I have a drum set. I bring somebody else to play drums. I take them through the rhythmic clapping exercise that I did when I failed a bad English audition and use it as a metaphor for timing in business.
Yeah.
Because it's all about timing, so what we do has so much application.
Yeah. Well,
and it's great. People love it.
It's powerful how you do it because your energy, your excitement, and you bring these people to an awareness that they didn't have before.
Right. You're giving them a piece of what we do, but everybody, look, a buddy of mine, Bruce Turkel, he's a branding expert, he's a great speaker, and he said, man, I took a poll of all the CEOs. He said like 80%, 85% of the CEOs said if they weren't CEOs, man, they want to play in a band. They want to be on stage. Yeah. Everybody wants to do what we do. That's why when I talked earlier, we're the luckiest people on the planet as musicians. Because if you're on stage and you're able to perform an instrument, you're able to communicate.
Yeah.
What could be better than that? We're the luckiest people on the planet. So the people that aren't doing that, they want to be us. Yeah. No matter how successful they are, They want to be us.
Absolutely.
You know?
You've widened your skill base, and you're talented in so many areas. The music industry
Thank
has
you.
changed. It's changed.
It has changed dramatically.
And how do you see the industry now from when we were younger, how it changed? How do you see an artist now, a young artist, preparing for the industry today?
You need to look for the opportunities. You need to understand that, first of all, there will always be an industry. There will always be successful people. There will always be world-class performers that are touring the world, that are making records. So even though the industry has changed, and we talked about the model is different, when we were growing up, you used to tour to promote your record, to sell the records, because there was a lot of revenue generation in the sales of music. Whereas now, the artists are giving away music to promote the tour. Okay, so the model is flipped.
Yeah.
So the revenue streams have changed. What I do see though is the cream still rises to the top. The beautiful thing about it is because of the internet, it's almost like an even playing field. It's a lot more of a self-generated business. Whereas they used to give you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 and a producer to make a demo. Now a record company won't even think about signing you unless you've sold 10,000 units, which means for drummers, I did a DVD called A Day in the Recording Studio, all about recording and miking drums, because I realized, well, almost all the sessions I do are in my own studio. It's self-generated.
That's a whole other skill base that
That's a
you
whole other
learned
skill
too. You
base.
learned the engineering part of it.
But I put out the DVD. I guess my point is that bands, you do need to broaden your skill base. You need to be able to make your own music. You need to be able to sell your own music. You need to create, be able to market, and you need to create a fan base. Yeah. But here's the key. Here's the formula that I learned from my friend Scott Page. He was a sax player for, you interviewed Scott, didn't you?
Absolutely. He did Pink Floyd,
yes.
Toto, absolutely. Scott's
fantastic. Scott's formula is the golden formula. It's about building superfans. Yeah. A superfan, because people aren't necessarily buying your music, but they're buying you. You become the brand.
The story is important.
You're the story, and they want your art, they want your t-shirts, they want exclusive content. A superfan will pay $100 a year for you. So if you can build 1,000 superfans, that means you have a revenue base of $100,000. And the superfans can also include students you're teaching. Remember, we talked about that. So imagine if you can build 5,000 or 10,000 superfans. That's a lot of money. Yeah. Because all we want to do is we want to be able to make our art and make a living doing it if we want to be professional, which means we're making money doing what we do. Yeah. So you need to figure out a way. And so these are the ways. So you tap into your fans. You still need to be old school in the sense you got to go out and play, and you're building fans. People still love the live experience. No matter how much YouTube there is. You get a bunch of humans together, listening to music, getting that energy, and they will love it. And those people become fans because they associate you with the experience. And then they become super fans. So it's about getting enough music out there that people are inspired to want to go see you live. Absolutely. And then I tell people as well, I mean, heck, when I do my drum clinics and my corporate events, I do it along with video. I bring my own little rack and I perform with video and I do these medleys and I have little in-ears. It's not hard to do, but very few people are doing it. Yeah. So I've been coaching some bands in LA, and I said, why don't you come on stage? You get a little. I bring my own video projector. It's like $500 and a screen. I start showing images and people are like, what is that about? You need to build your stage show. Make something out of it. Think in terms of you are a brand now. You're not just someone, playing a little guitar or playing a drum beat. You're a brand. So if you want to build the brand, then you want to make it attractive and you want to think of new and unique ways. I mean, one of my band people, they brought a screen on stage and the guy's like running back, getting props and doing, changing clothes, and just think out, when you talk about thinking outside the box, frankly, there is no damn box.
Absolutely.
There's no box. Anything you can think of, one of my quotes on my internet is dream your life and live your dreams. If you could think of it, then you create it. So start thinking, wow, what could I do to present myself differently and more uniquely, and as the sky's the limit, and combine all the media and do real time periscoping. And I saw U2 last year. And they were doing live periscopes, and Bono's on stage with his camera. It's just, the world is different, and the young players know more than we do. I mean, you've grown up with this technology. You see it.
These digital natives,
Yeah.
they really get a feel for it. This whole live performance.
Yeah.
How do you maintain all of what you do? Because here you are at a pace, Cher, hitting the road, back and forth, LA, Vegas, and you're balancing your family.
Oh, yeah.
Your beautiful family. That's a whole other balance of how to make that consistently work.
Priorities is
Nice.
one of it for me.
Nice.
I'm not always the greatest guy at time management, because sometimes I am doing a little bit more, and it puts me into a less than peak performance stage, but I'm getting better at it. And one of the things I do, as with my family as an example, is my family's number one. So my daughter, I got a 7-year-old girl, she knows I need to work, but they call me, I answer the phone, they FaceTime me, we might FaceTime 5 times a day, even if it's for 2 minutes. I make sure I pay attention to the most important things first. So family first, and then same thing, prioritize, just finding the balance between my family, between trying to squeeze in some practice time. I just brought a practice pad to my room so I could just, one of my goals is to be able to practice a little bit more. I haven't been practicing very much. Yeah. And then when I'm doing corporate speaking gigs, there's a lot of preparation because I customize every gig. Yeah. And then of course my playing on stage, I'm right here playing with Cher right now. We start rehearsing with Pink next month. We're doing a bunch of dates with Pink again. And then and I have a speaker manager, so the speaker manager handles my speaker calendar. Yeah. And my wife handles the homestead, and she's got her own career. And I just really want to be in peak performance mode whenever I'm performing. So it's like family first, performance and body. I was at the gym this morning. I worked out. I managed, I was like 5 minutes late because I was running and I was doing my arms. I still want to do that. The priorities, I tend to find that the things that I know I want to get out of the way, like the working out, and if I'm going to meditate, which I'm not doing that much, even the practice, I try to do that stuff early in the day.
Yeah. That's how I do it. Yeah.
And it is a bit of a juggling act, but we somehow manage to do it, and we delegate. I have a bookkeeper that helps me with my finances a bit, because I'm not so great with the numbers. Yeah. So then she can do that.
So you found ways to make it work. That you
find
can
ways
balance
to make it work.
all of this, so you have that level of understanding that even though your schedule is full, you're able to maintain it and be healthy with it and enjoy it.
Yes.
That's a very, very powerful.
Well, it's critical. Remember, attitude, behavior, consequence.
Yeah.
Just because something is challenging doesn't mean that it can't be fun.
Absolutely.
And one of the things when I talk about that ABC concept is, say, rock stars, musicians, we love to party. We do. It's inherent in us. Yeah. But partying's not in the substance, it's in the attitude. So if you could take a little bit of that partying feeling and that partying mentality into the things that even feel like quote unquote work, it shifts your attitude and you will enjoy it. If you're shifting your attitude, the behavior changes, the consequences change. So, when I sit down to practice as an example, I could sit down and go, oh man, this practice, right, and go, wow. This is an opportunity. One of the things I love to talk about
time to practice.
Yeah, I get to practice. Because for us, we have so little time when we're practicing. It's not a have to.
Yeah.
It's a get to. Have to feels like a chore. A get to feels like a choice. Yeah. So wow, it's like wow. I look at it as an opportunity. I look at it as a blessing as opposed to an arduous chore. Because remember, we don't work music. We play music. We're the lucky ones.
Absolutely.
So everything around that, if you kind of shift your mindset into a little bit more of a playful mindset, then you're going to enjoy the experience more. And all of a sudden, an hour or two goes by, and you're just focused, and it's cool, and you're having fun, and you're building. You get that opportunity to expand your skill set.
How beautiful! How beautiful! What a beautiful perspective. In closing, if we think about this here, we've got young students watching this, the next generations, and it could be when we're long gone, this will still be out in the universe for them to be able to sit and learn from. And the qualities that you're speaking right now will still be workable and usable 10, 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years from now.
Yeah, these are universal qualities.
Absolutely. What would you say to this next generation and these future musicians who want to aspire to do what you're doing, to live the life of music and to have the balance of family and business? What would you say to them of advice to help them guide themselves along the way with their passion of music?
Yeah, basically everything I've said, because there's a lot of stuff. But if I were to kind of break it down, the concept that you have the ability to shift your attitude, and by shifting, controlling your attitude into something that's going to serve you, You need to look at your attitude at all moments and think, the way that I'm thinking, the action I'm taking, the path that I'm on, is it serving me? Or is it undermining me? Is it getting in my way? If it's serving you, that's going to shift your behavior, and that's going to generate the outcome and the consequences of your life. The other thing is, if I look at the 3 C's of clarity, capability, confidence, have a very clear vision about what you want to do. What matters to you? Remember, you want to be authentic. What's driving you? What's making you passionate? If you take that passion and you evolve that into a sense of purpose, then you'll have clarity about the path. And when you have clarity about the path, then you just work as much and as joyfully as you can to build that capability. Yeah. And that's what's going to give you confidence. And that's what's going to attract other people to you. Beautiful. When I was out with Pink on the Funhouse tour in 2009, she called me Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. I would be careful about dramatizing a heavy attitude. Yeah. I think it's much more purposeful to you and other people around you to create an attitude that's going to be of service, that's going to be inspiring. And if you inspire yourself, you'll inspire other people. And think in terms of what we do as service. We're in the service business, baby, like anybody else.
Beautiful.
When we're on stage, when we're playing, when we're recording, when we're with our bands, think about everybody else. Think about what you can do to inspire everybody else. I always tell people, look, I'm a pretty low maintenance guy. If everybody else around me is happy,
I'm good.
I'm happy. I'm good. I'm good. The band sounds good. The artist is happy. Hey. Hey, what else?
You've always been this way. You know, in service to others, in inspiring others, Mark, you continually
you as well.
do this. But it's so exciting to see your career when I come by and hear you performing with Pink or Cher. It's so exciting because I know you, I know what you've done. Your discipline, your perseverance is inspiring at so many levels. Keep this up. Good luck. I love you so much. Thank you so much.